Humanity self-medicates, been doing it from the very beginning. And we primarily medicate ourselves to forget most often the pain. So we're going to be talking about a subject and a word that you probably don't hear a lot talked about. We're going to be talking about intemperance. And why intemperance is one of the key, let's just say the primary key of really understanding more about each of us individually and about our species collectively. So intemperance, been a word, it's an old word, goes back way back. And you can see it means number one, excessive or immoderate indulgence in alcoholic beverages or narcotics. Now, please note, it's not that it's wrong, it's just that it's in excess or in moderate amounts. All right, let's go on to the next definition. Excessive indulgence of appetite or passions. Whoa. Okay. The net's getting a little bit bigger, isn't it? Three, lack of moderation or due restraint as in action or speech. Boy, we could just do a whole program on that alone. Let's go on. Four, excessive acts of unrestrained devotion or dedication to a person or thing. Okay. Hmm. This word's really getting into focus now. Number five, unbalanced. Wow. So you could basically take from this definition, right? It would virtually cover every aspect of the human life experience. But I find it interesting on number five, unbalanced. So we could go forward on this, and this is what we'll do. When you see the word intemperance, begin to think inside your pictures now, your mind. We all see in words, we all see in pictures. So now begin to see unbalanced. So this will help really bring it in a totally different perspective than you've ever heard before. And in fact, you will see at the end of this program, by taking the word unbalanced as the primary subject, this really gets interesting for all of us. Everything from here forward is because humanity became unbalanced. What needs to be discussed is what caused us to become unbalanced in the first place. I've never heard or appreciated it from this point of view. I mean, think about it. It is totally a different way to see this. So, intemperance equals unbalanced. Maybe that's been part of our problem from the very beginning. Maybe it was an unbalanced of the species. Maybe it was an unbalanced of other forces. Maybe it was something cosmic. All we can say for sure is that everything today is unbalanced. So, unbalanced brings humanity to its lowest level and holds its power over all peoples and enslaved us from the beginning when humanity became unbalanced, intemperance. Seeing a different direction from a different point of view on a subject that, well, quite frankly, most people don't want to hear about because the way it's been taught very negatively. It's been taught and used against us individually, collectively, as a society, as a culture. And they used it very effectively because, you know, no one really wants to talk about something that OMG makes us have to really think about what we are and how we act. So, intemperance, humanity. We're going to talk about in this point why we intoxicate ourselves. Now, early man used intoxicants to fight pain, and pain was primarily due to two things: disease and accidents. I mean, back in those days, if you broke a bone, oh, that hurt. Now, I bet you never had thought about this part, but they also got themselves inebriated, self medicated because of the boredom. Now, I had never really thought about that before, but think about it. If your life was, let's say, a hunter gatherer, well, you probably are going to be hunting in the daytime, going to follow the rhythm of nature itself. And as soon as the sun goes down, well, you don't have any more light. And boredom became a real problem. But you never had thought about it that way. It has been one of the plagues of humanity. Self inflicted, may I say, but nevertheless, one of the plagues. Every culture has had its intoxicants. It was incorporated in worshiping God. Many, in fact, virtually all, even today, although it's done more ceremoniously, but still, intoxicants have been engrafted to the worship of the deities from the very beginning. Certain plants, man found out, produce effects more potent than others. And then when we learned about fermentation, well, that solved it all, and it became more and more used in virtually all religious ceremonies. Who'd have thought? But there is a reason for that. All right, so here's a quick little history lesson just to throw in to show you how far this goes back, how much of it it's a part of who we are as a species, and how we have so misunderstood this, how we have allowed others to lord it over us, to be in condemnation and guilt, which just exasperates the problem even more. So the Nubians made a barley beer called booze. Yeah, that's where the term booze come from. And a wine from a palm tree. African tribes very early made from a sweet juice of the palm oil to make a powerful intoxicant. The Malayans used sap of the coconut. The Tartar tribes made it from the mare's milk and they called that kumis. In South America, the natives drink canna distilled from sugar. In the Sandwich Islands, in the middle of nowhere, they have a drink called kovgov. Every nation, every culture, every religion, every ritual uses intoxicants. It's a part of who we are. And you're going to find out in this program how that has permanently impacted our brains. So understand everything, the intoxicants, and intoxicants includes prescription drugs, folks. Oh, yes. And today, man believes that he can cure all of these ailments and effects by drugs. It's nothing new. Now, we've refined the plants into convenient pills, and the liquor has always been the liquor. But stop and consider this. There is a reason why they call it spirits. Spirits, ladies and gentlemen, although not what we have been trained to think as spirits, but nevertheless, just as intoxicating. Same deity, nothing new. Now we add frequency addiction because that's what technology is, folks. The modern day electronics is frequency. Now, once you begin to understand this, the rest of this program gets really interesting. At the root of all addiction is pain. The question that has to be asked is why and when. It seems to be as it is with, let's say, the insect species, that where the collective consciousness is made available to every part of that species. For us, it seems the only thing that is passed on a collective conscious basis is the pain. Now, the masters, the dark overlords, have taught us that pleasure equals pain. The reason why they do that is that because it's the unbalance. So, the pleasure equals pain, pain equals guilt, guilt goes back to pleasure. When you begin to, under the complexity, understand how your brain works, what parts, and folks, it's the small parts that control the large boundaries. Look at this. You control these areas known as the pleasure areas. You control a person. You see, you have a brain. We all do. But virtually, unless you're actually into the science of the brain, none of us know what our brains actually do. None of us are really acquainted with our brains. For we automatically assume thought, reasoning. Now, those in the medical field, they have to remember every one of these arteries because every one of these arteries have a very important role in the fact that you could hear me now. There is a goal, devious, however you want to define it, to enslave every person on earth. We live in a day and age unlike anything we have ever seen before. And the thing is, you don't know your brain, but they do. They've got it getting pretty good at it. They haven't figured it all out, but they have figured out some of the key points of having you so deluded in a delusion. You think you've created this. You think it's your thoughts. You think it's your choice. But you don't know your own brain. And there's a reason for it. You control the reward section portion of the brain. Not even the mind can overcome it. Only a strong mind. Because the brain is an organism. It's an organ. And this organism, we're still figuring it out. But we know this, all of us are addicted to pleasure. It's about control. If you are not in control, then I can assure you something else is. I find this interesting as well, is that even now we are producing new types of drugs that are supposed to be safer. But again, folks, drugs, unless from a plant directly, is synthesized and chemical compounds have been added in. This is not natural. It's not normal. And every organ in your body will respond. Here's the whole point. Your brain is the beginning and the end of your reality. And what this produces will send forth its energy imprinted upon your mind, the soul, the spirit energy, and carry over to the next. You see, we're birthed into this temporal plane in an unbalance. And no matter how pristine a soul may be, no how matter bright the spirit shines, it's submerged, immersed into an unbalanced environment from the very beginning. Is it any wonder that we go through life not knowing how to handle the very bodies that we have? Indeed, we've gone from the dark ages to the dark ages. We teach unbalance. We make sure that every next generation knows about it. And then it dominates for the rest of our lives. And now we have invented an insidious new addiction, one not known to modern man. And it is so altering the very organ that we depend on. It's quite remarkable when you begin to understand that there are permanent changes being done right now in this generation. In fact, for the last several generations, permanent DNA changes. These are long-term permanent changes in the very brain. It's by design, folks. What we're finding out is that the Wi-Fi, the 5G, the permanence of the frequency attaching itself to your brain is controlling the very center of where cognitive thought begins. And they are purposely flooding the brain with these dopamines. And once the brain becomes dependent, wired, you want to talk about temperance? So here's what we should realize. This picture very well could be a birthday party. How would you know? You're telling me you don't celebrate birthday parties, anniversaries, traditions? And libations are always part of celebrations. And here's the other thing. Actually, beer or wine was healthier for you to drink than the water. For the water, as the early settlers found very quickly here in the Americas, contain little surprises of its own, like giardia and other nice little presents. At least with a fermentation process, most of that was never a concern. So intemperate, even carried too far becomes unbalanced. Think about that. Now, morals, ethics, empathy, no different than brain, mind, soul. You begin to teach the soul, the mind begins to control the brain. But if you teach it the other way, guess what you have? Unbalance. Teach the soul, the mind will instruct the brain. Now think about that. Teach the soul, and the mind will instruct the brain. It's where the balance got out of balance. And really, where it got out of balance is when we eliminated alchemy from the consciousness. We have to bring it back. It brings balance to our species. It is a knowledge and a wisdom that was given as a gift. But sadly, that gift was stolen from us. We're going to bring it back, because unless we do this, humanity will always have unhealed pain. We will always have unbalance in who we are individually, who we are as a society, who we are as a species. We must find the balance. Otherwise, more souls will stay trapped in a place that they can't get out of, a place of horrors, a place of hell, of lack, of suffering, of the mind, of the soul, of the body. These are but the demons of man created. Man created them out of his pain, and they haunt us yet today. And more souls are captured. and more are lost. There is a new God. There is no equal to this God. There are no challengers to this God, for there is no one more powerful than this God. We will look back on pictures such as this and absolutely have no understanding, no meaning of what it was talking about. And even today, much of the knowledge has been lost. But this new God, the digital God, affects the brain as a narcotic. Think about that. It's all designed to freeze your soul. In so many ways. Now, this new God, let's just call it digital. By current estimates, it's infected, addicted, collected 6 billion and counting humans. Yes, mankind has never seen a God like this. We will look back on the days of having just one more would be at least a choice, because today none of us have the choice. Oh, you may think differently, but the sad reality and truth is you don't. There was a story of a forgotten time, a story that was meant to be a buoy of not only direction, but of also a potential salvation. And what we've discovered is that because of this lost knowledge, this lost understanding on our species, we always saw two paths, one of enlightenment, the other of the pleasures. But what we've come to discover, to our dismay, is that they're actually one and the same road. Unscrupulous would define who we are today. No scruples, unrestrained by scruples, conscienceless, unprincipled, telling lies and being unfair. We're all guilty of this. Don't sit in your piousness. You've not become so enlightened yet. Now, granted, you may be closer to the front of the room. There's a lot of us that made it that far. But still, it is ingrained into us. Intemperance. Oh my. The images of the past are no longer relevant. They have no relevance. We don't understand. We can see the pictures, but it has no meaning. It's of a forgotten time. But yet, this is one that still impacts us. Yes, where we begin to see the vices and then the attributes, they're still the same, but much more dangerous. Man has created new spirits. We're good at this. It's one of the things that still mystifies me is that as I am now learning, We've been creating from the ether almost from the beginning, but we were been blinded by seeing and understanding. Instead, we've been distracted by the attributes that yet we still repeat, never realizing we created this out of nothing. We're masters at it. It's just that we see things differently, as it is with every age. There is no sin more devious than this against humanity. This one, the infection is so great, so widespread, that even the infected no longer realize they're infected. Side effects, oh, my dear friends, we're living the side effects now. But I'm telling you, we know what they're trying to do, whoever they are, because they cause depression, insomnia, diarrhea, ulcers, fatigue, nightmares, nausea, anemia, vomiting, headaches, addiction, anxiety, and then death. That's what they're designed to do. But we have got to learn, we have got to reason, and we have got to understand. Each of us are wrapped around a core. That core can be called many things, but there is a better way for humanity. We lost our way. It's time that we began to understand what we were actually created for. Each of us already, to a degree, command the elements. You already are well on your way to becoming a master. You just don't know it. But it is true. There is a path that we are migrating back to by instinct. It's as if there was something internally put into us that is shouting, there is a better way, come back to the path. There is a transmutation that's taking place in us all, in you, in me. Understand this. Dull the mind, and the soul is easily captured. Do you now know why the addiction was put there? It was to deceive you. It was to distract you. Because here is the truth. Whether it be male, whether it be female, create with both in balance, and you find our true nature. Ladies and gentlemen, you are a sovereign, sentient, intelligent light being. You are a God. When are you going to stop serving the lesser ones? The second you make that decision, the second we as a species in our collective consciousness realize this, that is the day we will ascend to the next level.